Hey all, it's your boy Dylan. Welcome back to our Dylcast episode. Now, last time we recorded, the season was still rolling, and not this time around. It's over. The Leafs lost in 7 games to the Tampa Bay Lightning. I'm excited to talk about that series and the next steps here with my boys Jared and Max. You boys want to say hi?
Yeah, hi. Obviously, it's a tough note that we're getting on this podcast, but regardless, it's still obviously nice to get back on and discuss some hockey, discuss obviously what happened with these guys in a little bit different game, I'd say. Because overall, we had a hell of a series. It's the same result, but it does have a different feeling to it because we played a great series against a great team, and ultimately, it was a disappointing ending, but again, sad note to get on the podcast, but at the very least, it's nice to get back on talking, and I'm excited to break down what obviously
Mm-hmm.
happened.
Yeah, Max, want to say something?
Yeah. So yeah, I'll agree with Jared there. It's a bit depressing being on this podcast for this reason, and not for the Leafs make it to the second round. But we'll go with it. I have some compelling points that I'm gonna talk about. Excuse me, when we get into it, and yeah, that's it.
Um, yeah, no, guys, I had Toronto in 6. I know these two had Tampa in 7, I believe.
Yep.
Mhm.
Doesn't feel
So
good to be right on that one. Like, I would have
yeah,
been more than happy to be wrong on that one. It was a heartbreaking ending. There was not a single part of me that's like, oh, at least I was right on my prediction. No, it
yeah,
was,
of course.
again, in that situation, it's balancing what your heart's telling you and what your head is telling you. My heart told me the Leafs are capable, and my eyes throughout the series showed me the Leafs were capable of getting it done. But at the end of the day, I'd say the more experienced team won. The team that probably should have won ended up winning, and it doesn't make me feel any better though. Like, it's still such a disappointing result, even though we played such a phenomenal series.
Mhm. Yeah, completely. I agree. So, yeah, no, that's good words. I mean, I had Minnesota moving on to the Cup Finals. I had them winning the Stanley Cup Finals. If you guys didn't see my the episode, but yeah, no, rough go. I went 6 for 8, but obviously want to talk about this main series, so we'll get into it right now. All right, guys. So, sorry for there's the intro, and but yeah, no, we lost in 7 games. I'll say all the games in a row and the scores just to catch everyone up for those who don't know. For game 1, fantastic win, 5-0. Game 2, 5-3 loss. Game 3, 5-2 win. Game 4, 7-3 loss. Game 5, 4-3 win. Game 6, 4-3 loss in overtime. And in game 7, a 2-1 regulation loss to lose the series. So a lot of different ways we can approach this, but I think Jared's got the most. I think he's got the best view out of all of us. So, Jared, why don't you start us off with your personal opinion? How do you think the series went? What do you think they could have done to beat the Tampa Bay Lightning? Just your overall thoughts on the Leafs versus the Lightning.
Well, unfortunately, it's hard to say what we could have done differently because I really liked the way we played throughout the series, and that's why the result is that much more frustrating because it's like I don't know what more I would have asked them to do. It's not like last year where the big boys got shut down. The big boys were thriving. Our leading scorer in the series was Austin Matthews, who had 9 points in the 7 games he's played. Marner as well, 8 points in the 7 games he's played. So the big boys showed up, and we got production from pretty much all throughout our lineup. David Kampf potted a few goals. And overall, we looked really good. I thought the defense was solid. I thought Jack Campbell, yes, his numbers aren't amazing, but he kept us in our fair share of games. And that's why there's not really anything I would have necessarily said the Leafs needed to do better. But it is pretty frustrating that, again, 2 years in a row, game 6 and game 7, with a lot of chances to win the game, why couldn't we get that killer instinct and pot that goal that would have put us over the edge? So that's the one thing I would have maybe said, okay, why in those final games weren't the big boys the ones scoring? But aside from that, I think we played as good of a series as you're ever going to see us play. We played a phenomenal opponent, though. And yes, I'm not one to make excuses. That's who we're matched up against. We had enough chances to beat them, so it's not like, oh, we only lost because we're playing that team. But we played a hell of a series against them. At the end of the day, I think the better team won. The team that's won the back-to-back Stanley Cups, they're a very good team, a very deep team, have the best goaltender, I'd say, in the entire NHL, and they kind of showed it in those big games. Like, as evenly matched of a series as it was, and the Leafs had the chance to eliminate them twice, in Game 6 and Game 7, I think you saw why the Tampa Bay Lightning are the back-to-back champions. They are a team that, yes, maybe on paper and even throughout the series, a lot of it, they were very evenly matched with the Leafs. But in those big moments, that's a team that knows how to step up and fight for their lives. And unfortunately, at this moment, the Leafs just don't have that yet, where not that we play nervous, because I actually thought we played phenomenal, especially in Game 7, but at the end of the day, they're the team that knows how to execute in those big moments and score that big goal that ultimately puts the team over the edge. So, frustrating result, but as I mentioned, the team gave it all they got. There isn't a lot I would have said we should have done differently. I'm not one to kind of turn back on my beliefs going into the playoffs just based on the result. I think we are a phenomenal team. We had a phenomenal playoffs, but at the end of the day, one team has to lose, and it just sucks that it had to be us.
Mm-hmm. I completely agree. Yeah, no. So Max, wanna take it off? Sorry.
Hmm?
You go ahead. You go ahead.
No, I was just agreeing with him. You can go.
Okay. Yeah, but I know, and I think what you said at the beginning, we are like so close. It's a game like Austin Matthews said, it's a game of inches. Vasilevsky was fantastic this series. There were parts where he could have been sharper. There's parts where Campbell definitely could have been better. But I think overall, the big boys came to play, and that's something we wanted to see last year. Um, and I think we, like you said, Jared, we played a hell of a series. It's unfortunate. We don't want to make excuses, but it's unfortunate that we have one of the best seasons, regular seasons in franchise history, and we end up playing the back-to-back Stanley Cup champions. It just really unfair, but once again, you gotta just do what you have. You gotta make do with what you have, and the Leafs couldn't do that. But like I said, going back to Matthews' code, it's a game of inches. Leafs could have been one goal away to winning that series, and especially in Game 6 overtime. It was the same thing as Montreal in Game 6 the season previously, the previous season, sorry. And yeah, no, they had utter domination, but Vasilevsky was fantastic in that overtime, and just one opportunity for Tampa, and they took advantage of it. And it just really sucks how it works out. It's just really bad luck. But I think you can put it down one way where they had really bad luck, like I said, or also you could put it to the way like they got outplayed by Tampa. The Tampa Bay Lightning, they played a great series. Kucherov played insanely well. I think he was the MVP of the series if you don't give it to Vasilevsky. Um, and yeah, no, I think overall their whole team played a great game. Their guys stepped up when they really needed to. Nick Paul, for example, in Game 7. And the Leafs had some of that, but I think Toronto I think we just got let down. Of course we got let down, but it's just unfortunate the way things go with luck and skill, whatever way you look at it. It's just a really unfortunate situation. And I think the good part about this is we can look at this series and we can determine what went wrong, what we can do to fix it. The next season we can come better. We're gonna have to have a lot of patience. Us Leafs fans, like we've had for a long time, we're used to being patient to the next season because we're out in April or May. But yeah, no, I think we just need to enjoy the hockey we have. The Blue Jays are a pretty good team. I know they're been struggling recently, but yeah, no, I think we ought to be patient. We got to see how Dubas leads the offseason because I know he's coming back. We heard Shanahan say that. So we'll have to see how this team is shaped coming into next year. I think no matter what, unless they blow it up, but obviously that's not going to happen, they're going to be looking like a Stanley Cup contender next year on paper at least. They were on paper supposed to be a series champion, but it all comes down to how the games roll out, and I think the Leafs played fantastic hockey, but it just wasn't enough.
Yeah, and exactly. That's the most, I guess, heartbreaking thing is the fact that we played so well and it still at the end of the day just wasn't good enough. It's that common saying is some teams are great, but they're just not great enough. And there's a difference between the good teams and those teams that ultimately get it done. That difference is those teams like the Tampa Bay Lightning, they know how to step up in those key moments. And not that we played bad. I actually found a lot of Game 7. We dominated in terms of shots. We had a lot of chances, but the good teams find a way to execute in those big moments, and that's just what very unfortunately we couldn't get. We just couldn't get that production in those final games. But then again, we played a phenomenal team, and I'd say the Leafs really gave it their all. And yes, it doesn't make me feel satisfied that, oh, they tried their best. That isn't what we're here about. Like, in this industry, results matter. But still, it's hard to be too mad about the effort they gave because they played so freaking well. It just sucks that one goal going in the other way or some refing being called a little bit differently. Again, I'm not one to make the excuses, but if some things were a little bit different, I think this series could have gone a very different way. But hey, that's not what ended up happening. The Tampa Bay Lightning had the same refing that we had, but at the end of the day, they found a way to step up. So it's just very unfortunate. And one of the things you mentioned as well, it's something that we kind of got confirmation of with the press conference today, is this isn't the type of loss you blow it up after. We played a great series against a very good team. I'd say the better team won, but that isn't to say to become a team that can beat the Tampa Bay Lightning, you blow up the core and trade everyone and fire everyone. I think that would be a very big mistake, and I'm very thankful today that Brandon Shanahan obviously thinks of it the same way I do, because I think if we were to blow up the core after a loss to the back-to-back championships, to the back-to-back champions in a series in which we played very well, I think we'd sit there next year very much regretting that decision. I think our team right now, we proved it throughout the series and all season long that we are good enough to do something special. And again, that's why it's so frustrating that we couldn't get it done. But at the same time, that's why I really think the right move is to keep this core around for next year. Yes, you make some minor additions, and that's, of course, something we're going to get to later on in the podcast. You make a lot of similar additions to what we did last year, getting guys like, hopefully Dubas could hit on another Bunting or another rookie or a guy like David Camp. Or there's some players like that out there that are going to be on the market. And Dubas could absolutely make changes to our roster in terms of the depth positions. But trading away any core member of this team, in my opinion, would be a massive, massive mistake. And I am very happy that the management crew, at the very least in terms of what they're saying in the press conferences, it appears that they see it the same way, that it would be a massive mistake to blow it up after that.
Max, you want to add on to anything or no?
Well, I'm gonna talk about what I think right now.
Sorry, what you say?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Alright, I'll talk about my thoughts right now. Alright, so in my opinion, the last set of minutes of Game 7, it really looked like Toronto didn't really want that, and Tampa was going full on. Well, they did want it, but it didn't look like it looked like
Tampa wanted more.
Tampa wanted it way more than Toronto, and they were putting in the effort, putting in the time. Kucherov and Stamkos had an amazing series, and you mentioned that Dylan Vasi,
Didn't play his
did
best
okay.
hockey.
He didn't play his best hockey, but he still is Andre Vasilevsky at the end of the day, and he still did play quite good. And the last game, he really come to show that he can win against the Toronto Maple Leafs in the playoffs. But I think that besides that, it was a good series. Everyone really played good. Like I saw, Matthews had a good series. Warren had a good series. Glad that they're back to what they've been in past playoff series. Last playoff series was interesting for them. But yeah, I liked how Willie was playing. John came back for JG came back for like game 5, 6, and 7. First 4 games not like amazing, but still decent. And I think the rest of the core really played outstanding, and it's a depressing loss. And maybe if we had a bit more time in that period, we could have tied that up. But with everything happening, it's a bit depressing. But I think we'll come back next year. Hopefully, we can do something. I'm not gonna say anything to jinx it or anything like that, but hopefully, we can end up doing something good and making it past that first round finally. But yeah, that's basically all I have to say.
Well, the one thing I just want to add on that is, like you say, oh, we didn't want it as much as the Lightning. I don't know if I'd necessarily say that's true because we actually outshot them significantly in that final period of Game 7. It's kind of just a thing. It's not about who wanted it more because I think the Leafs wanted it a heck of a lot. I mean, we outshot them in the third period. I believe it was like 17-6. So we were really hammering on them at the end of the game. But ultimately, they're a very good team, and you have to give them the respect because in that final game, they were blocking shots like I've never seen a team do before. And
Exactly. Yeah.
yes, you could say Andre Vasilevsky didn't have the best series. In fact, if you look at his numbers, he didn't have a great series. He let in at least 3 goals in every game from game 1 to 6. But at the end of the day, that's a goalie where in that final moment, he decides, okay, nope, we are not losing this game. And ultimately, he stepped up in the big moments. That's what a championship team does, and that's the difference between a good team and a great team. Is I wouldn't criticize the way the Leafs played. I think the Leafs played phenomenal, but I don't even know if it's about wanting it more. The Tampa Bay Lightning just decided at a moment, something clicked in their heads. We are not losing this game, and they just absolutely stepped up and blocked everything we had to show for it. They played great defensively, and overall.
Oh, Jerry, you're muted for some reason. Alright, you're back. You're good.
Sorry. I don't know what that was about. Regardless, I mean, they found a way to step up and capitalize in those key moments, and it's not about wanting it more because both teams clearly wanted it a lot. But one team has to win, and that team that has the more experience, they're a championship team, of course. They found a way to pull out those goals. But the Leafs, I'm not criticizing the way they played. I think they seriously played a great game, a great series. I'd say they were a better team in Game 7, but at the end of the day, people aren't going to care about that. People care about the results, and it is very frustrating that we just couldn't find a way to get those wins, despite how good we played.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, like Tampa, just like I don't know, clicked in their heads. They just decided to put their body in the line. They really just gave all the effort they can. I completely agree that the Leafs gave it their all in Game 7, but I guess Tampa giving it their all is just a little bit stronger, and this is such an evenly matched series. It went down to a one goal, went down to one goal. Game 7. It's not like it was in Game 6 or Game 5, and it's not like it was 2 goals in Game 6 or Game 5 or in Game 7. It was one goal in Game 7. It usually doesn't happen for the Leafs. Game 7 is either a blowout or a 2-goal game. They really put up a fight in Game 7, which is something we don't traditionally see. And it just goes to show that they're getting better. But you mentioned it earlier. I have a few other topics we want to talk about before we enter our off-season predictions. We can get into that last. But yeah, you kind of mentioned it short a little bit. The referees, I think they were brutal in this series. They're more one way. I think Tampa definitely could have gone some calls, especially in Game 7. I saw some parts where we got away with a few penalties, but I think mainly it was Tampa Bay, and especially in Game 6. I know this is going to come up eventually somehow, but obviously Game 6, David Kampf cross stick up right on the shoulder. Video evidence. They went over it too. I don't know how you missed that. But it hit him in the shoulder, and Tampa got their 2 minutes. Right after, Kerfoot went out for, I forget if it was a high stick or a tripping or something like that. It was a pretty brutal way to let Tampa tie it up, because that momentum carrying into the third period after John Tavares scored 2 goals in like 10 seconds, and it just, I don't know, it's just really unfortunate. So yeah, I think the referees were horrible, and I think you could say that without the Lightning, without the refs making these calls, the Leafs could have win it. You could say otherwise. I just wanted to hear you guys' opinions about the refs, and especially that obviously that Game 6, that occurrence in Game 6.
Well, in general, I mean, hey, I'm not one to make excuses. I think regardless of how the referees called this, I think we had enough chances to win the game and whatever. So I'm not one to make an excuse if that's the only reason why we lost. But I'm not even going to say it was only on us that we got the bad end of the stick. I think overall the referees were just, it wasn't even that they were bad, it was that they were inconsistent. In the playoffs, you need to make a decision. Are we going to be that playoff series where we put our whistles away and don't call anything, or are we going to call absolutely everything? And in this series, they were just so inconsistent where they'd have individual games, individual periods where they're literally not letting them get away with anything, making soft call after soft call. And then at other times, they'll penalize one team and not the other. At other times, they'll literally not call a thing, even though both teams are committing dangerous infractions. So it was really just, it was so frustrating how inconsistent it was. And the Leafs definitely at times got very questionable calls called on us, but as well we got away with some things too. So I just think overall, rather than using that as an excuse thing, I think it was just inconsistency overall from the officials, and it's a major problem. And I'm not someone who says usually you shouldn't call anything in the playoffs. I think in fact you should try to keep the same regular season rule book. It shouldn't be feeling like a completely different sport. But there were games in this series where they literally called things that would have been soft in the regular season. And I'm like, really? In game 7 of the playoffs, you're calling that in a deciding game? Like, it's just the worst times ever where they decide we're going to call literally everything. And then other times where it's a key moment, they decide, nope, not going to call anything. So, really just frustrated me how inconsistent they were with their calls.
Yeah, I completely agree. Max, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, there's I think there's one play in OT where Bunting got tripped up and they did not call that in game 6, and I think they might have scored like right after that or something. So that was a bit annoying and nothing you can really do about the past as of right now. But in my opinion, I don't know if you guys agree with this, but I think after the playoffs are over, they should look into these refs. I know these refs have been like in the playoffs, like have been refs for like a long time now, but still, I think they should look into these refs, see what calls they like kind of screwed up on, and I don't know if maybe fired is a big word, but I feel like they should at least like be known that if something happened, like they did this on purpose and like went against the Leafs, and they should at least be like no, it should at least be noticed. But besides that, I think the Leafs really did good, and the rest weren't even like like a big part. But besides, yeah, the Leafs still did really good, and I think the Leafs deserved it, but they couldn't get it done. And yeah, Tampa's a really great team. And yeah, that's all I have to say.
Yeah.
Mm,
Well, to your point about the reviewing the officials, I agree with you because I think the league, for just a league standpoint, they should always be trying to better themselves, and they should look at what happened in the past and how we could we be better. So I do agree with you. They definitely should look into the refing, not just in this series. It was all throughout the playoffs. I think, in my opinion, the most inconsistent refing I've ever seen in any NHL playoffs. Like
completely
I
agree.
know as well in the Boston Carolina series, there was a lot where Boston was getting the very much the fair share of the calls. I think you need to really take a look at the officials and see why was it that individual series were refed so much harder than others. And already you saw it came out the other day where the officials that were refing Game 4 of the Leafs Lightning series, they've now been banned from refing the rest of this playoff. So it shows you that they already are starting to take a look at kind of how the officiating went. And I believe they should keep doing that because at the end of the day, just to get the respectability of the league, they should want the best possible product. And that comes with making sure you have the very best people officiating those key games.
Hmm. Yeah, no, I think I agree. I think multiple times at this series, I thought, how are these refs not getting warnings? Obviously, they can't get warnings in the middle of the game, but it just boggles my mind how inconsistent they were. It just they were making Toronto or Tampa can just completely smash us against the wall, but we tap them in the shoulder and we get called for 2 minutes in our series. That you could call that the turning point of the series because with that power play, with that power play,
Five
first
on
power
three, yeah.
play, Kerfoot probably doesn't take that penalty. You never know, but probably not. And then the Lightning don't score. Leafs, I mean, once again, they probably could have scored. I mean, there's a good shot. But also maybe not. Maybe they shut them down and the Leafs win the series. So it just be the refing was just completely brutal. Yeah. So yeah, I agree with you guys. Just um, they gotta they gotta take a look at these refs and just give them a or I don't know what exactly they should do, but they need to look over they need to review the series and see what they did wrong because it was pretty bad, and I think Leafs Twitter definitely had got their run of it. So yeah, no, we're gonna take a quick pause. We got some technical difficulties. We'll be back in a moment. Okay, sorry about that, guys. We're back. So yeah, no, like that's so there's the refereeing. Sorry. You guys want to talk about anything else before we get into what what's going on? What do you think? what do you think will happen this offseason? Any
Oh, well, I guess one more point on the reffing. As much as I'm not going to say that's the reason we lost, I do agree with one of the points Dylan made, where it absolutely ended up being a big turning point in the series. So I think, and again, back to the initial point Max made, I think they absolutely, like Gary Bettman and the league, should always be trying to be better, and they should go back and look at the officiating, as I mentioned, not just in our series, but all of the series around the NHL, because it was just so inconsistent. And they definitely, if they want the best possible product and the best possible playoffs, they should really go through, make sure everyone's in agreement about the type of style we're reffing games, because there's a very distinct, different way you could ref a game where it's either you completely don't call anything or you call absolutely everything. And really, I think what they should do to get the best possible product is try to find that middle ground as much as possible, because you saw it in a lot of series where they were calling things very soft, then drastically putting the whistles away. It made it so players didn't know how the games were being officiated, and they didn't know whether or not they had to be kind of skating on eggshells a little bit, because there were certain games where they were calling literally everything and they had to be so careful, and then other games where people were allowed to get away with absolute murder. So it definitely is something they need to look into, and I'm very curious what they're going to do about the referees, because as Max mentioned, it's not about firing these people, making them never allowed to ref again. It's about, we want a good product, and we want, if something's wrong, which I believe there was a major problem with the officiating in these playoffs, we should try to fix it as much as possible, even now on to the second round. Have like an NHL-wide meeting or something. Kind of address it. Send out a NHL-wide newsletter and kind of say, this is the way we need to be officiating games. We still have round 2, 3, and 4. We want a very good product and one that goes down as the best playoffs in NHL history. Well, the only way you're going to get that is if everyone is on board and liking the way games are being officiated. Because in the first round, more so than in any other year, I think this is the most criticism that I've ever seen on the referees, and rightfully so in my opinion.
Yeah. And no, I think we can talk about before we still got a little bit of time here, so we can. If you guys want to talk about the rest of the playoffs and any other series that were significant points, firstly I'll talk about Jake Ottinger. Oh my God, what a performance!
Unbelievable. He deserved better, but that team just has no offensive scoring ability whatsoever. He was so good, though.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think Dallas, the only reason that series went to 7 is because of Jake Ottinger. He is a goalie on the that's a goal that's on the rise, and Dallas really has something in their goalie. But if they want to turn things around, I know they're getting old, and they might have maybe one or two more dances. Maybe a couple more opportunities, because Sagan, Pavelski, Ben, Klingberg is starting to get worse. Obviously, they got Heiskanen and guys like Heiskanen, obviously Onger and Jason Robertson. I didn't see too much of in this series, but he's also a great young gun. So I think Dallas, we can talk about the Stars a little bit, but I think it's a weird direction the Stars are in. I know we're completely going off the Leafs, but I think it's a kind of awkward situation in Dallas. We can talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, well, one thing I'll say about that Dallas series is when I was making my predictions, I, for one, thought I was being generous, saying that series would go to 6. I thought that's the absolute max it would go to, because I just thought the Flames were so much better. And again, maybe they are so much better, and ultimately I believe the right team won. But I thought I was being way too generous saying it would go to 6, and then it all of a sudden went to 7, went to overtime in Game 7. So credit to the Dallas Stars, and yes, it has to do with Jake Ottinger, but as well, I honestly was somewhat impressed with the defensive ability of the Stars. Again, they have no offensive upside there whatsoever. Very much a team that struggles to get scoring from the big guys, but their defense and goaltending actually really impressed me throughout the series. And again, like, Calgary has a lot of weapons, but Dallas did somewhat of a good job of shutting them down a little bit. So that's why I did think it would be a bit closer of a series than people expected, but I'm not even going to claim that I expected it to go to the absolute distance, because credit to Dallas. They pushed the Flames, I guess, as much as they could push them. At the end of the day, the right team won, but Jake Ottinger and the defense really kept them in that one. It was not a very entertaining series. I'd say it was very low scoring, maybe more so of a lower scoring series than he would have liked. But then again, there's nothing wrong with a good defensive showdown, and that's really what the series ended up being. That's why, though, when we're kind of previewing the round two series, I do think the Flames are going to have a lot easier time of a not so strong defensive team in the Edmonton Oilers. I do think that one will go the Flames' way quite more dramatically, just because when looking at Dallas, good defensive team, I don't see the same thing with Edmonton. I do think this is a series where the Flames are going to be allowed to a little bit walk all over them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Max, any thoughts about the Stars and the Flames?
Um, it was an interesting series. Like you guys all both had compelling points, and don't really have much to say. But yeah, I just think it was a really good series, and Ottinger and Ottinger really came to play and kind of carried the Stars, in my opinion. Like not fully, but kind of carried the Stars to Game 7. And the Flames are lucky they could get a goal off in the OT. And yeah, I just think everyone in that series was really good.
Mm-hmm.
I completely agree. It was again, the scoring of the Stars is a big problem because if they want to be any chance of being competitive next year, they definitely need to work on their scoring. It's a very clear flaw in their team. But shout out to them because they figured something out with stepping up in the playoffs in terms of their defense and goaltending ability. Because in 2020, they defensed their way all the way to the Stanley Cup Finals, and this year, as much as they got eliminated in round one, they played a very good Calgary Flames team and pushed them a lot farther than even the most generous fan kind of predicted it would go. So kudos to them. They made it a close series, but at the end of the day, no disagreement there that the rightful team ended up winning. And I felt gutted there for Jake Ottinger because he was the only reason that he was keeping them in that game. I believe at the end of the game, the shots were like 68 to 28 or something. Calgary was absolutely peppering shots on Ottinger, but that's a goalie who decided he was going to stand on his head, and at the end of the day, kind of a floater from the red line ends up going past him. It sucks, but what could he do? I guess he took him as far as he could take him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I mean, we could talk about all the other series, but we don't have that much time. I think Pittsburgh, I'll review all the series. You guys can do that as well. A few notes. But yeah, no, Pittsburgh, New York, that game one was great. Very entertaining. I think Pittsburgh, maybe if Jari played the rest of the series and played well, I mean, it could have gone Pittsburgh. They blew it. I had the Rangers in 6. So I got right with that one. Carolina, Boston. I know you're talking about. I mean, you were talking about the refs. I wasn't paying attention to that too much, to that series. But anyways, I had Carolina in 6. Boston took it pretty far, but eventually it wasn't enough. Florida, Washington. I know you had Washington winning. Yeah, I know the Panthers kind of just after game 4 overtime they were close to losing it and they won and was it a disallowed goal in overtime? I forget.
No, I believe that was in the Boston Carolina one where there was not
Uh,
in overtime, but there was a disallowed goal in that one. I don't think so at the very least. I don't remember a disallowed goal in the Panthers Capital series. Regardless, at one point I did want to make on Florida. Yes, obviously that was the one where I went with the hot take. But then again, I still was not impressed with Florida in this series. And you see it tonight. Obviously, it's only game 1 of the Tampa Bay Lightning round 2 series. But Tampa a little bit was able to walk all over them. And I do think that's somewhat going to happen in this series. I was not impressed whatsoever with how they played in that Washington series. I mean, Florida is significantly better of a team. And of course, they ended up getting that win, but they were a post away. Like Washington had an empty net chance that they could have scored and buried it. They ended up hitting the post. Ultimately, Florida came back the other way, tied the game, won it in overtime, completely changed the series. But again, Panthers were a post away from going down 3-1 in that series, and
oh, stats that I was thinking about.
if that happened, chances are they don't end up winning that series, and I would have looked like a genius. But as much as they got the win, they didn't impress me whatsoever. I mean, they weren't really getting scoring from all their star guys. It was Carter Verhaeghe who stepped up, had a massive game where he had 5 points, but otherwise, I mean, Huberdeau only was held to 3 points in the 6 games he played. And didn't really get a chance to, like, the stars on that team didn't really get a chance to walk all over a wild card Capitals team. And I think they could find themselves in a little bit of trouble here. And I haven't been sold on them all year long. Of course, they won the President's Trophy, but I saw a lot of flaws in the way they played and how it would translate to playoff hockey. To be honest, I wasn't impressed with what they did in the first round, even though they got that win. There was games where they were finding themselves again, which was a continuous problem in the regular season, finding themselves down by a lot of goals early. Yes, they'd find their way to climb back in and get those wins, but you cannot not start on time in the playoffs. In a lot of games, they'd have to climb back from 3-0 deficits and things like that. And sure, against a team like the Washington Capitals, you could kind of get away with that a little bit. Against Tampa, though, if that's the strategy, you want to play that loosey-goosey style, good luck is all I'll say, because we saw the Tampa Bay Lightning series against the Leafs. That's a team that if you aren't playing smart, if you're making sloppy mistakes, they'll eat you alive for it. So I'm honestly pretty nervous for Florida in that one. I think it maybe goes to 6, but I think Tampa will probably convincingly win that series because I think there's so much more of a better defensive team.
I agree. I think Tampa can take care of that series. We saw it tonight. They had a good first period, but Tampa struck back. Their veterans really pulled through. Maybe we could change Florida. Maybe things could change. Florida gets a wake up call. They win the next 4 straight, and who knows what happens? It's playoff hockey. Anything could happen. But it looks so far that Tampa is going to beat them, and we'll have to see how that goes. But yeah, no, I think Florida was in trouble. Like you said, they're a post away from going down 3-1 the series. That's probably it for their season. But they got some luck, and they also kind of kind of took away or took advantage of Washington's unexperienced goaltending, I guess. And
Yeah.
I think they're maybe they got away with one there, but they're gonna get caught up. Tampa's gonna catch up with them, and that's about it. So for the season, in my opinion, but like I said, anything could happen. But yeah, no. Any other series? Anything else you want to talk about, guys? In the West?
Um, no, I guess one thing I'll say is a lot of people were very high on the Minnesota Wild. I was one who never really caught on board with them. Like midway through the season, I wrote an article. I did like my bold predictions for every team in the Central Division, just something I did with my friends on their own like little podcast network. And one of my bold predictions is a lot of people have these wild expectations for the Minnesota Wild, but I never really caught on board with them, and I kind of predicted they'd be a first round exit, and ultimately that's what ended up happening. And I think it comes down to them being a little bit top heavy. And yes, throughout the regular season, they were getting great performances from guys like Kevin Fiala and Ryan Hartman and a lot of other guys like that, Matt Zuccarello. But at the end of the day, as much as Kaprizov did have a great series, the rest of that team, not that they didn't show up necessarily, but I wasn't that impressed with the way they played, and the depth of the St. Louis Blues really, I found, shined throughout that series. And I'm one of the few people, I know a lot of people picked the Wild in that series, I believe yourselves included. But I find in the people I've talked to, I was one of the only people that picked the Blues to win that one, and ultimately I ended up being proven right just because I think the Blues are a really deep team, and I think they a little bit exposed the Wild's top heaviness. And not a bad team, but they're a team that now heading into next season with a lot of guys who aren't re-signed to come back next year. They now have a lot of question marks about how good they're going to be next year. And listen, I still think with guys like Kaprizov, they should be a playoff team. They should be good moving forward, and as long as they can work out their signings and things, they probably will be back. But I think they have a little bit of work to do to really get them over that hump where they're a finely built team. But there's a bit of top heaviness with them, and as well, not the best defense. They got to find a way to fix that ASAP if they want to really make some noise next playoffs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I was pretty high on Minnesota. I had them winning the cup, in fact. I think they're a team that would be able to take the next step. I guess I was wrong. There's always a team every year that's kind of, it's just odd to see go the entire way or go a long time. Last year's Montreal. I guess the year before you can say it was Dallas. So I think Minnesota was really high on. Sorry, and yeah, no, I think like you said, they're very close to becoming a cup contender. Kaprizov played well, but yeah, no, I think they still need a little bit more experience to get over that hump. And St. Louis, I think they were played surprisingly well. I think you and other people expected them to play well, but I didn't really see this coming. And they're up 1-0 against the Avalanche right now, and they could potentially give um, Colorado some trouble. So we'll have to see how that turns out. But yeah, I think that'll be
That's
a
one
fun
one.
series. And yeah, 1
It's
1.
1-1.
Oh, 1-1.
Yeah,
Okay.
they tied it. I actually just checked that.
Okay, but yeah,
But
no,
regardless, yeah, I think the Blues are a good team. I still think Colorado will
agree.
win this one. But in the first round, I mean, I had them beating the Minnesota Wild. That's just because I think they're a lot deeper of a team. And yes, their goaltending wasn't as good in terms of like the resume that Marc-Andre Fleury has, but both Jordan Binnington and throughout the season, Billy Husso are goalies that have shown in brief spurts that they could step up and play very well. And good for them because in this series, when you need to step up, they both did. And I think they played a good series. The whole team overall played a good series. And in my opinion, the deeper and better team won. Obviously, that wasn't a common opinion because a lot of people really liked the Wild going into these playoffs. But I don't know. Personally, I was never really sold on them.
Hmm. Yeah, so um, I guess we can get into the our Leafs back to Leafs. Our predictions for the first round or for the off season. Sorry, I don't know what I'm talking about. Um, I uh, I
Go
took
first.
into some consideration. I think some
Can
moves
I
could
go
have been
first?
realistic. Oh yeah, sorry.
Alright. So yeah, Dylan, fuck, my bad. I got a bit confused here. Alright, so yeah, mine is not like fully realistic. I want some realistic, some not really as much, but I still think some of it is kind of realistic. So for my first line, it's just the same as last year. Classic Bunting, Matthews, Marner. Second line, I have a bit of a different one. I heard some rumors about Tavares playing on the wing. So I have John on left, and I have Ryan Strome picked up 5 mil for 2 years in center, and then Willie on the right wing. And then for the third line, I have Kerf on the left wing, Camp in center, and Nemestikov 1 year, 1.2 mil on the right wing. And for the last line, it's basically just what it was last year with Blackwell, Spezza, and Kasha. And then for my defense, it's not that different either. I have Riley Brody, Muzzin Lilligren, and then Sandine. And then I picked up Nathan Billiou for just the minimum for 1 year. And then for goalies, I have completely different goalies. I have Billy Husso picked up 3 years, 3 mil, and Aaron Dell for the minimum. And also I bought out what's his name? I bought out Peter Mrazek. I traded Justin Hall for a sixth to Buffalo. Traded Joe Anderson to the Golden Knights for a fifth. I don't know if he's worth that much, but just getting some more draft capital. And then I think I also bought out Kyle Clifford. I'm not fully sure though. And yeah, those are my lines
Pretty
Mm-hmm.
good.
as of
One
right
thing I'll say though is, to be honest, I think of the two, Jordan Binnington and Billy Husso, I think the Blues are more likely to get back Billy Husso. So if the Leafs were to go after a goalie, I have a feeling it would be Binnington as opposed to Billy Husso. So that's maybe the one kind of thing I'd say about that. But otherwise, yeah, it looks pretty good. I mean, similar to this year, and that's what it should be. I think when you're talking about what the Leafs should do in terms of the offseason, I think, as I mentioned, blowing it up would be a big mistake. And for that reason, the main core is going to be back, but it's those secondary and additional pieces that kind of need to be swapped out. And listen, I think you did a good job of that because I think obviously a lot of these things could end up happening. Another thing I just want to ask though, Giordano, you don't think we're getting him back? You think he's going to go somewhere else?
I mean, depends, because I know he's gonna ask for a decent payday. Maybe he'll give us a little discount. Excuse me, because of
That's what I
hometown.
hope
But
because he's older at this point. So I hope he's
yeah,
kind of in the mindset where he's made his money throughout his career. He wants to hopefully win a cup or go on a run with his hometown team. And yes, you can't make someone take a hometown discount, but you definitely like him too, and I really hope he will. Take a little
yeah,
bit of a page out of Spetz's book.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know if like well, I don't know if he will resign, but there's still like a good chance. Just I don't know if he's good, if he's willing to resign, and maybe wants more money. And also, I think what's his name, Sandine. I think Sandine. He hasn't been in the lineup for a while. Wasn't in the lineup at all for the playoffs. I liked him in the playoffs last year. Not fully sure if he did too much, but I still did like him a bit. And I think Sandy and Liljegren still so much time to grow, and having them in the lineup, like solidified in the lineup, is good in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I agree. It looks good, and I think that's a very like even Ryan Stromang is kind of a big name to add. I don't know if I see us making any massive moves. That's the one thing where I'm like, maybe I don't know if we have that much room to bring on a $5 million guy, but otherwise everything else seems pretty legit, and I think it's very likely that that's sort of the angle that Dubas is going to take this offseason. I think Shanahan, of course, is giving him the vote of confidence to kind of keep the core around, not make any major slam dunk moves, but just kind of tweak around maybe guys on the wing, guys in the bottom six. Like it's like you kind of nailed it in the sense that those are the types of moves that Dubas is getting.
Max, I have a
Also,
question. Oh, sorry.
I want to address one more thing. I'm not sure what Toronto fans are thinking about firing Kiefer Dubas. I honestly don't see any point in doing that.
Oh, I agree with you, especially Dubas. Like I wouldn't want Keith fired, but the one that I'd kind of understand is okay. Why hasn't he really gotten us to step up in those big moments and score that big goal? So that's the one where I'd be like, fine, if you really have to fire someone to make a big splash, make it clear that you're changing things around. Fine, change around Sheldon Keefe, especially just because of the other coaches that are on the market right now, like Barry Trotz, for example. But firing Dubas, I would be the biggest
Pete
mistake
DeBoer.
our management group could make. Dubas, I think, has been
No way.
phenomenal ever since coming here. He has made phenomenal trades. He has drafted insanely well, and he has built a team that is very clearly capable of doing something special. It's on the players, unfortunately, they haven't stepped up in these big moments, and maybe as well it's on Sheldon Keefe. In no part is the way that we haven't been able to step up in these big moments. In no part is that on Kyle Dubas. I think he's done every single thing he has to do and more to make us a competitive team. It's about time the lineup kind of steps up in those big moments and finds a way to win because it's not Dubas' fault, in my opinion.
I agree.
Yeah.
You
were gonna say something?
Yeah, Max. How much cap space do you have?
I have $6,884 left over.
Cutting it close.
Alrighty.
I mean, as long as I'm under the caps, as long as I keep it under the amount of cap space I have, the salary cap the Leafs have, and as long as I have that, I think I will be fine.
One thing I'll say about that though is like, unless obviously putting someone on LTIR is another story, but what if it's like a guy gets injured, but you still have their cap space? They aren't injured long term enough to put them on LTIR, and we want to call up like a Marley that let's say makes 700,000. With the way yours is set up, if we only have $6,000 worth of cap space, we don't have a lot of room to do anything. So I do think that's maybe cutting it a little bit too close, in my opinion.
I agree.
Well, alright. Don't you want to say anything?
Yeah, no, I think I like the Strom edition, but I don't think we can pay that much for him. I kind of made a similar kind of move. I'll say it in a sec, but yeah, no, I think I think it's something that the Leafs will look to do. I know they've been talking. I heard about Tavares maybe moving to the left wing and them bringing on a second line center. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, no, I think my prediction about the same. Maybe some unrealistic moves, maybe some realistic ones. You guys will just be my judges, I guess.
Right.
But I guess I'll get going if that's good.
Yeah, perfect.
All right, so yeah, no, I think I made I guess three big moves. I did the same thing as Max. I bought out Peter Mrazek. Contract's just too big to handle, especially if we're trying to bring over a goalie or maybe re-sign Soupy. And also some contracts that I gave. Maybe you could say that I underpaid or overpaid. It's also something you guys can judge me on. I'm happy to hear the criticism. I also traded Justin Hall. I traded him to Chicago for a 2023 7th round pick. We need to get him off the books. $2 million is just is bad. I think Chicago can use the depth. A 7th round pick isn't much to play or it's not a big price to pay, and they could just use him. If he pans out, that's great. I'm pretty sure he was born in Chicago. You'd have to look it up, but
He was drafted by Chicago,
I
like the
don't know,
fifth
something like
round.
that. I don't know, but I think it was time. I think it's time to at least move on from Hall. He was pretty useless in the playoffs. He's been useless all year. Doesn't really have a purpose. He just makes the passes he needs. He actually had a good game. Game 3, I think he subbed in or whatever. He had one pretty good game, which I was impressed with. But I think it just $2 million is a hefty price to pay, especially the fact that you need to bring back Lilligren and Sandine this year. Even though you have them on the RFA, I think you probably want to bring them back. It's a smart call, and put them in the lineup, especially after the years they had. And that probably means Hall has to go. So yeah, no, I got Hall. And then I'll go to my big move in a second. But the players I didn't bring up back on the UFA is Colin Blackwell. Like we talked about Mark Giordano. I'd love him to come back. I just don't think they can afford him. Potentially he comes back on a cheap contract, but I don't think we'll be able to do so. Hutchinson we're not bringing back. Carter Hutton we're not bringing back. Kiva Halmi, Brett Sini, and then unfortunately I think Ilya Mikheyev. I don't think we have enough cap space for him. He had a great year, a breakout season, 36 points in 60 games. I think he played really well. But yeah, no, he's gonna want a payday, and it's just money we do not have. So unfortunately, I hate to say it, but I think Mickey or Cobra has played his final game as Leaf. And then the RFAs that I just can't afford, I'll tell you guys in a sec here. Just pull it up. Or Joseph Dushak, Chad Christ, Christians Rubens, and Ian Scott. Didn't have enough money to bring him back. The guys I did bring back on the contracts, I bring back Spezza 1 year, $750K. Kasha bring back, I think it was 1 or 2 years, I forget, for 1.25 mil.
1.15. So yeah, very similar.
Yeah. Pierre Engvall and bring back 3 years, 1.3 mil. Lilligren, this also could have been unrealistic, but I went Lilligren 2 by 1.55 mil. Sandine 2.16. And then I bring back Soupy. I looked at it. We had enough cap space. I think maybe I underpaid. You guys can, like I said, you guys can judge and let me know. I paid 4.6 for 5 by 5. I know he will. I had little money. I'll tell you guys why in a sec. I had the money, but I had the money to do it, and I think that's a decent amount that Suki's comfortable with. I know he wants more than 2.75 or whatever the lease offered him. I saw something about that, and I know he wants more, around 5. I think maybe he'll get a little bit more term, because the more term, you probably get less money, more term. So we'll have to see how it goes with that. But 4.6, I think that's a fair amount for Soupy. And that's it. And then here's my big move. I traded for Bo Horvat of the Vancouver Canucks.
Interesting.
I
Stealing the
traded
captain.
Alexander Kerfoot, SDA. I think he took some time to develop. He still got potential. Kyle Clifford, and then a 2023 third round pick that you could say that's a 2023 second or a second round pick later on. I guess you guys can. I don't know. I kind of thought a third round pick was fine. Clifford, I just put in just to make things the contracts work. I'll tell you guys why in a sec. And then I got Bo Horvat 50% retained. I think maybe.
I feel like I don't know if Vancouver would take that. I'm going to be honest, especially considering they have to retain 50% of that to give up their not only a very good player for them, but also their captain, their leader. I feel like they need a lot, and I don't think not that isn't a lot, but I feel like they'd want a lot more than that. Just
I agree.
Kerfoot,
yeah.
He's good. Kerfoot is good. Third round pick is fine value, a good prospect, whatever. That isn't replacing their captain, in my opinion. So I feel like I don't know if I'd see them taking that, but hey, we're doing predictions for a reason. It's fun. It doesn't need to be 100% accurate.
Exactly. And I think the part of that is third, maybe you can add some a first or a second instead, and maybe another prospect. But I think Horvat, like you said, it's going to be a hefty price to pay. But I think the Canucks could take on Kerfoot. SDA, like I said, a couple prospects. The Leafs have the prospects. and I think it's a guy that the Leafs would like to get. So after all that, I'll tell you guys my lines. So I got Bunting, Matthews, Marner, Tavares, Horvat at the center, and Nylander at the right, at the wing. Engvall, Kampf, and Kasha. And then finally, I think Nick Robertson is going to get a lineup spot this year. Robertson, Spezza, Simmons. I have 1.12 mil. I have one and a bit, 1 mil and change. Just so if there's injuries, like you said, I can call someone up from the AHL. No one in the AHL is above 1 mil, so if I really need to, I can bring someone up. And my defense is Riley, Labushkin. Oh yeah, Labushkin I forgot about. I bring him back 1.8 by like 2-3 years. I forget whatever. But yeah, no, I'll bring him back. Muzzin, and Brody, and then Sandine and Liljegren, and then in net Campbell and Shalgren. So I think, like I said, this is kind of like a rough draft. I guess fortunately, we don't have to deal with this stressful job Dubas does, so it's up to him to see what we can do. But this is just a little mock, just having some fun, seeing maybe if they can bring a guy like Horvat over there, that'd be pretty cool. Yeah, no, what do you guys think?
No, it's solid. The one thing that I guess jumps out at me a little bit is going into this season, like the one that we just finished. Shalgren was like a goalie. He was like fifth on our depth chart. The fact that he's now like our regular, with everyone healthy, he's our regular backup goalie. He was very good, but you don't think we'd use any money towards getting like a more proven backup, or you think we're rolling right with Shalgren?
I think Shalgren has proved enough to management that he can take the backup spot. Plus, we don't have any money really, so
Fair.
I think if we don't have the money, I think Shalgren is a perfect plan B. I think Dubas, I mean, he did it last year with Mrazek, and he might do it again with another backup Dendy. But I think Campbell, heading into next year, will be our starter. Who knows? Will be our backup. Maybe like he can pick up someone cheap. We'll see what they do. But with limited money, I think Eric Shalgren at the minimum is just a good backup. I think he proved himself. He had some minutes in the playoffs, so that's good for him. He actually played pretty well. So yeah, no, I liked what I saw with him. Yeah, no, that does it. And Jared, do you want to say something quick, and then we might have to take another pause. Do you want to say what your lines are?
Yeah. Well, so I actually didn't prepare a whole thing. I was driving, and then I was eating dinner while obviously in the group chat you guys are saying make this thing. So I didn't quite make it, but I still have a general idea of what I would do if I was Kyle Dubas in that situation. So before I read off like the players I think the Leafs should be in on, I just wanted to read a tweet I found that I thought was very interesting. This is from at Brian CRD. It says, Kerfoot, Hall, and Mrazek all combined to make $9.3 million. It won't be as hard to move them as you may think. You could also look at moving Muzzin's $5.6 million to give the Leafs some cap space going into this offseason. So I think those are guys that maybe I'd look to move. Not all of them. I honestly have liked Kerfoot, and if possible, I would look at bringing him back, but if needed, I wouldn't really hesitate to move him. And then otherwise, the guys that I think the Leafs should be in on is just, I don't think we're making a big splash. I don't think we're getting a big Ryan Strome type or even a Bo Horvat type. I don't think we're stealing another team's captain or getting a superstar, as nice as that may be. I think we have to look a little bit more reasonably, and for that reason, I think the guys I'm looking at are going on cap friendly right now, looking at some RFAs around the league. It's guys that make a general reasonable amount of money that are more so depth options, guys that play on the wing that could play with, in my opinion, our already set kind of team that we had this year and our already set centerman. So a guy I'm looking at is a guy like Adrian Kempe. He's a left to right winger. He can play either wing position. 25 years old, makes $2 million. So like cheap guys like that. Another one like maybe a Jack Roslovic makes under $2 million, like 1.7. Just skilled guys that could play on the wing, play in different positions. You know, there's a lot of them. Like, I'm not going to read every single player, but there's a lot of RFAs right now that I would really encourage Dubas to go take a look at. Because I think there's a lot of similar players that remind me a lot of the guys we got last year, guys like Kasha, Bunting, Camp. I think there's a lot of similar additions such as those that we could do. I don't think this is the offseason after a disappointing but not quite embarrassing loss to the Tampa Bay Lightning, a very good team. I don't think this is the offseason where you blow it up, trade a big guy, add in a massive piece. I think you're going to play it a lot more safe than maybe Leafs fans would like. And as maybe frustrating as that may be, I think the team this year proved that they're good enough to win without making a majorly drastic change. So just I don't know. There's a lot of good players in the RFA list that I really think we could take a look at. More names I mentioned, guys like Dylan Strome hasn't quite worked out now in Chicago, but for that reason, maybe he doesn't have as much value, and we could really pick him up. There's just a few guys that obviously at the top of the RFA list, it's the big name guys. But beyond that, there's some smaller names that I really think we could make good additions to our team with. And I really think Dubas is going to be busy with those players to kind of make additions such as those. Then otherwise, ideally, I would like to bring back Campbell. I as well would like to bring back Giordano. But for those, it really has to do with what they're asking for, what they want back. I saw already we sent a very cheap, in my opinion, offer to Jack Campbell, and he rightfully so declined it. So I think we are going to need to be willing to pay a little bit more money to get these guys back. But I do think when we trade out guys, as I mentioned in that opening tweet, when we trade out guys like hopefully Muzzin, if we have to, Kerfoot, trading out Hall, other guys like that, hopefully getting rid of Mrazek's $3.8 million, we will, I hope, have enough money to bring back some key pieces to this team that I found are really impactful for us. Then again, maybe you have some hard time bringing back guys like Mikheyev. I don't know if I necessarily see Engvall coming back, but then again, this is the year that you see some rookies and some guys that haven't quite had regular spots in our lineup, such as Robertson. I think this is the year where those guys become more regulars on the Leafs. So those are more the changes I would make. Again, I'm playing it a little bit safe. That's because I don't think the team has given us reason to not play it safe. And I think making some drastic reactionary moves wouldn't be a mistake. And for that reason, I think you're more so making bubble kind of moves where you're making guys that are like, you're taking guys that maybe are in the third or fourth lines on our team that aren't quite having that much of an impact on our lineup, that maybe you're asking for a little bit too much. Then you're like, okay, flip you out the door at the very least. Get a pick, get a prospect, get someone that could right away free up cap space, and then we'll use our cap space to go on the free agent list or go on the RFA list and get some very good guys, because there's a lot of good value pieces that are right now free agents heading into next year. So I really think we can make some additions to our team without necessarily blowing it up and adding in some major big name, because I don't think that's what we need at this point. I think it'll be a lot more underwhelming in terms of name value than a lot of people are expecting.
Mm-hmm. All right, and I think it'll be like you said, it'll be like bubble, small moves around the big guys. I think next year these fans should be worried about missing the playoffs. Maybe there's a Vegas situation. I highly doubt it. I think we're a playoff team. I think that's something we don't have to worry about. But it's just the playoffs we have to worry about next year, obviously. But I think the moves we make, no matter what, I think our team. You could say our team's gonna get better. We also might be getting worse. So I think no matter what, I think the Leafs will still be a contender next year. So I do get a little worried sometimes about the team, but I think they'll be good next year. I think no matter what, whatever happens, I think next year we're going to be contender either way, and I think that's what people need to think about is we're still going to be a contender. So I guess that's it, and we'll head to the outro. All right, guys, sorry about that. So we are so that's it. Little review on what happened, and I think the rest of the playoffs is going to be very interesting. Expect more episodes recently. I know a lot of, even though the season is over soon, the off season is going to come with a lot of fun events. The draft free agency, and even in the NBA as well. So it's going to be with that. I mean, there's a lot of like I said, there's a lot of things going on upcoming. So be sure to check YouTube and check my Instagram. Thank you, boys, for coming on the pod. I know you guys both have your own podcasts. Obviously, Max is recording the same episode on his. I put the links in the description for both their channels. So yeah, no, you guys want to say anything before we sign off?
No, it was an awesome time. Thanks for having me again. And obviously, not the best note that we're doing this podcast on. Of course, it sucks that it's reacting to the Leafs, of course, getting eliminated. But it's always nice to hop on these guys. I think you guys have great up and coming channels. You guys have great hockey analysis, and I
Shit.
always love coming on here and breaking down. Obviously, this team not always being putting me in the best of moods, but hey, it's always fun getting on here and just chatting about what the Leafs are up to.
Of course. Max?
Yeah, mainly the same thing as Jared. It's always fun being on here, and more episodes to come. Yeah, like you said with the off season, some big things happening. Like also you said with the playoffs. Hopefully, well, I'm going with Hurricanes for the win. I'm sure Jared is sticking with that as well. But
Yep.
yeah, hopefully my back goes well. And yeah, I had a lot of fun being on here. Maybe we'll do something like this in the future, maybe a few months or something like that for off-season grading. We have a bunch of. Oh, we'll think about it and we'll come and maybe we'll do something like that.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely.
Yeah, I know. I just want to say, Hyman, congrats to Zach Hyman for moving on. Sure Koya to my boy Himes. He got passed around. That's great for him and the Oilers, even though their matchup wasn't the greatest. But yeah, no. I hope we can do this again sometime soon. We can do this after the playoffs or whatever. I know this is always fun when we come together and do an episode. So I appreciate both of you boys staying on here and yeah, no, I will. I guess that's it. So appreciate it, and hopefully we will be back soon for another episode. But yeah, that's it for today. Go Leafs, go Leafs forever.
Yes,
We'll
sir.
as much as I hate them, I will always be a Leafs fan until they get past the first round, until they win the Stanley Cup. But yeah, no, that's about it. Thanks for coming on, boys, and peace.